Hi everybody, my name is Chelsea. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that is probably going to be a massive disappointment, and that is the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power show that Amazon is putting together. I've been a Lord of the Rings fan since I was about 12 years old. I read Lord of the Rings as soon as I saw the first Fellowship of the Ring trailer. I was with my dad in theaters and he looked at me and he said, "This is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see this movie because the books were so great. The movie's going to be wonderful if they just do the same thing the books did." So I ran straight home. I'd already read The Hobbit years before. I was just needing an excuse to read Lord of the Rings. I crammed all three Lord of the Rings books in before Fellowship actually came out, and I've been a lifelong Tolkien fan ever since. I'm rereading the Silmarillion right now, and I'll get on to Unfinished Tales after that. I dabbled in those as a teenager, but I didn't retain a lot of it. Uh, that happens to me sometimes when I don't have a full narrative. I kind of have chunks. It happens, I forget things. Anyway, I forget things regardless. You'll find that out. We got some images of late from Amazon regarding this series. Look, I'm just going to be honest with you. No Tolkien fan could possibly be comfortable with this stuff, particularly Galadriel. I laughed out loud. I mean, I understand fully, and I've written this out in several pieces on Facebook and comments sections all over the place. I understand Galadriel was more rebellious as a youth. By youth, I mean like already thousands of years old. I understand that she wanted to leave Valinor. She was a bit of a rebel in that regard. She was a little bit, maybe even, I don't want to say hot-tempered, but a little more rash, perhaps, a little bit more, I don't think rash is the right word either, stubborn individual. Had her own mind, her own thought process, and what she believed was right. As Finarfin's daughter, I don't think she was ever like just an idiot. She there was an amount of wisdom there. Even when she was rebelling against something or being I don't know, a little more determined than we're used to seeing Galadriel be, I would have never pictured her picking up a giant sword. Look at this long sword, people. This broad sword that's on her back. That hilt is like 2.5 feet long. There's no way that Galadriel, granted the elves are strong and all that, but it's ridiculous. Galadriel was not getting out there with her giant, 7-foot sword and her pointy dagger and making sure to kill all of her enemies single-handedly. That's not how Tolkien works, number one, and that's not how elves typically work, number two. Number three, this is Galadriel in the Second Age. She's lived a little bit of life between the First Age and everything that transpires there into the Second Age. She's no like kid. She's not running around dumb. I don't understand where they're getting this theory from The Witcher interpretation for Galadriel. And if you haven't seen the Empire magazine cover, which I'm sure you have, basically, let me get myself out of the way here. It's Galadriel literally lady spreading, man spreading all over this cover. And it's just weird. It's just weird and laughable that you would take Tolkien characters and interpret them in this manner. I know she was posed for a magazine photo shoot. I realize this is not a still necessarily from the actual production. Thank Christ. But it's so bad. Um, I don't know. I don't think you sell fans, diehard fans. I don't think you even sell casual fans of Lord of the Rings on this photo of Galadriel. And the quote they have from Morfydd Clark over here that says, "Don't expect the same Galadriel." Well, no shit, Sherlock. Look at this. Um, I don't know. Again, I understand that they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion. First of all, Amazon does not have the rights. They do not have the rights to the unfinished tales. And what they actually have is the rights to the Lord of the Rings and the appendices of Return of the King, which is where they're getting all of this stuff. The fall of Numenor, the timeline of the Second Age, the basics of what happens. They have that. But some of this, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work out, guys. I generally try to be a realist about these things. And I would be lying if I said that I wasn't being influenced by how Amazon has handled other fantasy series like Wheel of Time. For example, I do take into account what they have done with other series. I think that's fair game. And I do take into account that they are working within this woke framework. And when I say woke, I'm not talking about casting diverse characters. I'm talking about deliberately misinterpreting the works of an author that were written in a different generation, in a different set of norms and cultural norms, to mean whatever we want it to mean now, as opposed to what they meant it to mean then, but pretending it's the same, like taking it, comparing apples to oranges and saying, oh no, we want this to be this now, so that's the way it is. And no one can challenge us. Everyone's a racist. Nobody can say anything about it. That's what I mean by woke. Not just a racist. Everyone's a sexist. Everyone's this. You know, if you don't agree with this version of Galadriel, I'm sure someone's going to call you a sexist because strong women obviously all have pointy objects in their hands and they are manspreaders. Totally. I buy it. Yeah, definitely. My problems so far are actually manyfold. The first hint that something was wrong is that they started to like march these creepy little fans out in these fake videos to tell us what a great series this was going to be. Just bad, just bodes ill. And everything since has just borne that out. Galadriel looks silly, manly, look like her brother, Finrod. Finrod, if this was Finrod, I would have zero problems with it. I mean, this should be Finrod, basically. You know, the ones that actually did the actual fighting, that would be helpful to maybe portray those people in armor, looking a little dangerous, doing some man spreading. Just nothing for the character of Galadriel and what she's going to accomplish later. Nothing. That's such a travesty. All right. Now we're going to move on to the facial hair. People are going to think that Tolkien fans have major hair hangups after this. Like we're all hair fetishists after they see these videos of us talking about Rings of Power. But we can't help but talk about it. The dwarves had beards. The dwarf women had beards. It was referenced in the movies and Lord of the Rings movies as a kind of a throwaway thing, cleverly and sweetly put in there. the elves famously have their beautiful long hair, which they don't in many of these clips and pictures from Rings of Power. Inexplicably, Elrond's got like chopped hair, and so do two or three of the original characters. One of them, I'm thinking in particular of an elf, just cut short hair. Why? From the trailer, one of the things that's annoyed me since the first moment I saw it, I thought that is weird, is when the guy pulls back the hair from Galadriel's head to see her wet hair, to see her ear, right? Her pointy ear, like it's a big reveal that Galadriel is an elf. That's such a Witcher moment. I was like, that's not how this works. Galadriel literally had the light of the trees in her hair. Okay. She was absolutely stunning to look upon, especially the hair. Nobody would need to, like, no human would look at her and go, gee, I wonder what she is. Let me check. Nobody. You would know instantly that she's an elf. I don't buy it for a second. That's ridiculous. Absurd. Dumb. I think this is supposed to be an image. Sorry, getting back to the actual covers. This is supposed to be like Durin the Fourth, I think, and his guess his wife, Princess Disa. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I don't have a whole lot to say other than that I wish she had a beard, but Khazad-dûm is unlike anything we've seen before. Okay. I hope they have a sense of humor. I always appreciated the dwarves for their sense of humor. Oh, the hobbits. The fact that they're pasting the hobbits or the Harfoots here on every single piece of promotional material tells you everything you need to know. The hobbits had nothing to do, Harfoots had nothing to do with any major events of the Second Age, but here they are. Do we see the Númenórean kings on the cover of Empire? No, we see the hobbits, the Harfoots, whatever. They don't even look like hobbits. They don't even look short. I have no idea what Empire was going for here, but it's bad. Okay, and this is John Howe and a depiction of a snow troll. John Howe is a genius. He's a brilliant artist, and I'm sure he will come up with amazing concept art for them, for the showrunners. No doubt of that. You know, John Howe's a talent, and that is a really cool looking snow troll. I have to say that. Or ice troll, whatever they're going to call it. I'm just going to say this. My boyfriend and I had a conversation about this just a few minutes ago. Something I don't understand about this whole rush to put out fantasy, the major fantasy series, Silmarillion or Lord of the Rings, history, Wheel of Time, all of that, is that they're not learning their own lessons, and neither are they learning anyone else's lessons. For example, we all know everybody started making these huge fantasy series when Game of Thrones was popular, because Game of Thrones was making money hand over fist for HBO, and the whole world was paying attention. It was a phenomenon. Everybody wanted to know what was going to happen. Everyone tuned into Game of Thrones. It was huge. And they wanted that kind of response. So they thought, let's go mine the big fantasy series for the big stories. But in the end, everyone knows what happened to Game of Thrones. And don't get me wrong, I'm a major Game of Thrones fan. I'm a huge Song of Ice and Fire stan. I love everything about it. I even forgave the ending for the most part, knowing that they just could not, they just refused to do what they needed to do. They sped it up entirely too fast. They filmed an outline, and that's not excusable, but you know, I got over it pretty easily because I'm, again, a huge fan. I get what they were trying to do. I understand a lot of the things they attempted to do. Some of them felt just terribly flat. Others could have been a lot better if they would have just taken their time. But anyway, I digress. Thrones had a major problem because they filmed an outline. They did not have the content. Those showrunners, those writers were adapters, wonderful adapters of existing stories, fully written out and realized by someone else. They pulled the perfect dialogue. They pulled from everything that George had written until there was nothing else. And then they couldn't, it just fell apart. It just fell totally apart. They couldn't carry it any further than that. With what he gave them, they could not do anything else or fill in the gaps. They just filmed the outline, said be done with it. And everyone hated it. It is known as the worst ending of a series possibly ever, because it was such a great series and then it just went by the wayside. They just gave up on it. Well, you think to yourself, if I'm making a multi-million-dollar giant fantasy series, what am I not going to do? I'm not going to do that. That is lesson number one. You don't do that. Do not film with only an outline of a story that you can never hope to fill in as good as the original author, that you really don't even have a good sense of where it's going, and you don't have a grasp on like dialogue and characters and all that. But really, mainly, don't film incomplete works. Don't adapt incomplete things. Duh. Why on earth Amazon would just go ahead and make a series out of the Second Age without the rights to the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales totally astounds me. I don't understand it at all from any perspective. It's a very stupid decision. It just is. They could have waited, right? Bided their time. Tolkien's grandkids, great grandkids, in another 50 years, they'd offer up the rights to the Silmarillion. Of course they would. You could buy them out, but you'd have to be patient about it. But you could get to the story you actually want to tell and have the whole thing ready to go, instead of inventing these ridiculous characters, Arondir, Bronwyn, as stand-ins for like Beren and Luthien or Idril and Tuor. And it's, why would you actually have I don't know. It's very poor decision making. Don't do what Thrones did. Don't just hope for the best that you can kind of use a loose outline and that's going to make, yeah, it'll be fine. No, it won't be fine. It will be very much otherwise. And then Wheel of Time is another lesson they should have learned. I guess it was popular somewhat with the set that weren't familiar with the books at all. At least it was entertaining to some people. But the people making the Wheel of Time show have already demonstrated a fatal flaw, which is they're afraid of the content of the actual Wheel of Time books, the themes, the gender constructs. They're totally uncomfortable with the duality of the male female in Wheel of Time, and it's essential to the story, and they don't get it. They'll make the story whatever they want. I'm sure it'll be fairly successful, but that's lesson 2. Don't adapt things that you can't bring yourself to be comfortable with from a narrative standpoint. Don't do it. Like, don't take Wheel of Time and change it to be something it's not just because you think it should be something else. Well, that's, it doesn't serve the story, it doesn't serve the fans, it doesn't even serve regular audience members very well because it falls flat eventually. It doesn't have the same depth, it doesn't have the same meaning because you've stripped it of meaning and implanted your wokeism into it. I don't get it. They're not learning lessons. Where was I gonna go with that? There's so many examples. I just think Game of Thrones is probably the best one. What do we not do? Let's not do that. You know, Star Wars, another wonderful example. Star Wars committed suicide practically with the latest sequel trilogy, which I didn't think which had no internal continuity, right? Just none. And that's Disney's unique problem. They've decided that nothing has to relate to anything else. Like, you can have a Star Wars universe, but it's okay if we directly contradict some films with other films. Total contradictions. Random, like 3 different directors for a trilogy of films. 3 totally separate visions. That's gonna work out great. Don't do that either, right? That's another no-no. I don't know. Amazon just doesn't seem to learn lessons about how not to piss off literally everyone. I guess they think we're supposed to trust them because they have money. I don't know. Anyway, that's just the beginning, probably, of my rants about Rings of Power. There will be more to come, I'm sure. Again, I am rereading Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales because I want to be an informed detractor. A critic, an informed critic. I don't want to just willy-nilly make comments I don't have any textual evidence for. I will readily admit I was a little surprised on the reread to find a little more to Galadriel than I remembered. Her stubborn streak, her willfulness. And I think willful females can be portrayed without swords. That's where I'm coming from. Why do we need manspreading to make a point? I don't think we do. Anyway, that is the end of my rant for tonight. It is 10 o'clock and I'm going to bed. Thank you for watching. And I'm sure I'll be back with more. Like, subscribe, and in the comments, let me know if you think I'm just totally full of crap or not. Thanks. If I can get this to turn off, that'll really help me out, huh? There we go. Bye.